Welcome to the Sleep to Dream Analytics Explainer video, where better sleep starts with better understanding.
Have you ever really wondered what a sleeping pill actually does inside your brain? Well, in this explainer, we are going deep into the science of what are called hypnotic medications to figure out exactly how they flip that switch from on to off, from wakefulness to sleep.
Okay, so to really get why these drugs are so important, we first have to understand just how big the problem is that they're trying to solve. You see, insomnia isn't just some personal annoyance, it's a huge public health issue that affects millions and millions of people.
And I mean, just look at the numbers. They're staggering. We're talking 10 to 15% of the entire US population suffering from chronic insomnia. That's not just a bad night here or there. That's tens of millions of people who are constantly struggling to get a good night's rest. It's actually one of the most common reasons people even go to the doctor.
And well, when that many people are struggling, you get a massive demand for a solution. Just think about this. Way back in 2011, over 60 million, that's million with an M, prescriptions for these hypnotics were filled in the US. That just goes to show how many of us are turning to medication for a little help.
All right, so how do these things actually work? To get it, we need to go microscopic. We're going to zoom way down deep inside the brain to look at this one tiny but absolutely crucial target. The star of the show here is a chemical called GABA. Now, the easiest way to think about GABA is that it's the brain's main off switch. It's like the primary brake pedal for your entire nervous system. Its whole job is to just quiet things down, slow down all that nerve cell activity. Okay, so here's how it all comes together. Most of the classic sleeping pills are what we call GABA agonists. Now that sounds complicated, but all it really means is they don't create some brand new effect. Nope. They just find that natural off switch we just talked about and make it way more powerful. So here's the process. First, the drug latches onto the GABA receptor. That opens up a little channel, and boom, negative ions flood into the neuron. All that negative charge makes the neuron way less likely to fire off a signal. And when you get that happening across millions and millions of neurons, well, the whole brain's activity just slows right down, and that leads to sedation and eventually sleep.
Okay, so now let's talk about the actual drugs. A really good way to think about these is that they're like different kinds of keys, and they're all designed to fit into that GABA lock we've been talking about.
So, you've got two main generations here. The older ones, the benzodiazepines, think Valium, are kind of like a master key. They're not very picky. They bind to a whole bunch of different GABA receptors, and that's why they do more than just make you sleepy. They also reduce anxiety, relax your muscles, they do the whole shebang. But then you have the newer Z drugs, like Ambien. These were designed to be much more like a precision key. They're way more selective, and they aim for the specific receptor subtype that's most tied to sedation. The whole idea was to get the sleep effect, but with fewer of those other side effects.
Okay, but what if instead of slamming on the brakes harder, you could just block the gas pedal, right? That's the totally revolutionary idea behind the newest class of sleep drugs. You see, it turns out our brain has a gas pedal too. Scientists discovered this whole system driven by a chemical called orexin, and its only job really is to keep you awake. It's constantly pumping out these, "Hey, stay awake" signals throughout the brain.
So this gives us two completely different strategies for getting to sleep. You've got the classics, the benzos and Z drugs that work by hitting the brakes, right? They make the brain's inhibitory system stronger. Then you have these newcomers, the orexin antagonists, and they work by blocking the gas. They physically stop that stay-awake signal from getting through. It's two totally different paths to get to the exact same destination, sleep. Okay, so we know these drugs help you fall asleep, great. But what happens after that? What do they actually do to the quality of your sleep, the very structure of it? This, to me, is where things get really fascinating. It turns out, these drugs don't just turn you off. They actually remodel your sleep. They change what's called the sleep architecture. For instance, we know that benzodiazepines can seriously suppress that deep, restorative, slow-wave sleep, the stuff that makes you feel refreshed. The Z drugs, on the other hand, don't really mess with it that much. And while both of them can kind of dial down REM sleep a little, it's these new orexin blockers that are expected to be the most gentle, the least disruptive to your natural sleep cycles.
And this leads to a really mind-bending question. Do these pills change our sleep, or do they just change our perception of it? Get this, studies show that if you wake up someone with insomnia, they'll often say, "I was awake." But if you give them a hypnotic and then wake them up, they're much more likely to say, "Oh yeah, I was asleep," just like a person who sleeps well would.
It suggests that maybe part of what these drugs do is fix a kind of sleep misperception that a lot of insomniacs have.
And all of this leads to a huge challenge for the future of sleep medicine. I mean, this quote really nails it. You have drugs like zolpidem out there that are pretty safe, they work pretty well, and now they're available as super cheap generics. That just raises the bar sky high for any new drug that wants to compete.
Which leaves us with this final, kind of provocative question to chew on. Does having a good enough solution stop us from ever getting a great one? I mean, is there any incentive for radical breakthrough innovation when the current options are already so cheap and effective? It's a really big question, and the answer could shape how we treat one of the most common human problems for decades to come.
Thank you for watching the Sleep to Dream Analytics Explainer video. We hope you sleep well and dream easy.